Welcome everybody. And this evening's 4 Women, 4 Decades talk, or it could be afternoon or morning, depending on when you're listening to this, is on a fresh look at productivity. Before I kick in, just in case you haven't been to one of our discussions before, I'll introduce who we are. So I'm Natalie. As you've seen, we've got Rebecca and Bea, who are also a wonderful mother and daughter duo, and Rachel. And we're just delighted to be back with you after the summer break. We felt that we missed the connection with you and these conversations during summer, and we were really eager to get started again. So thank you so much for joining us. A fresh look at productivity. So let me try and explain where that came from, why that topic is on the agenda for this evening. The four of us continue to grapple with the question how we can fit everything into our lives that we need to fit in and still feel well and energized. We see for ourselves that there seems to be some thinking that puts the value on productivity and output over valuing our nourishment and rest. And, you know, we are all coaches ourselves. So we are very familiar with having conversations with our clients, and there's an extreme feeling of exhaustion that is a kind of a running thread. And if I think of some of the clients I've been working with recently, and I've got quite a lot of, you know, busy mums who are working, they're managing house, and they're exhausted, and they're trying to look for a better time management system, almost like they need to get more organized. And it just seems like actually we need to take a really good look at how we approach what we ask of ourselves. And there's also this sense that not all time is equal. I know in the diary or in the clock, it looks like it is, but I think you'll all know for yourselves that there'll be some times when you're feeling relaxed or at ease and something seems very straightforward and you can do what you need to do. And another time you might not be in that space and might look at the screen for 2 hours and nothing happens. So there's this dimension of that plays as well. And before I hand over to everyone else, in the UK at the moment anyway, I'm seeing a lot of posts around self-care September, hashtag self-care September. And whilst I don't think that's a bad thing, like I of course we need to look after ourselves more. In my book, that's probably one of the key things that we need to keep as a real priority, to be more compassionate and kind and loving to ourselves. But the idea that we need a hashtag self-care September, as it's something to, you know, remind ourselves, why are we not doing it as autopilot? And there seems to be this sense that we're valuing the output and then how we input and nourish ourselves, we're treating as a reward if we do the work. And so one of the things we wanted to put on the table this evening was to kind of flip the way we look at things. What if we got it wrong? So.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Because that whole thing that you just said there about the nourishing ourselves as a reward, that we're not starting by doing that. I'll once I've finished this piece of work, once I've finished writing this bit, or once I've answered this many emails, then I'll go and even get myself a coffee, or I'll have a walk at lunchtime once I've done whatever it is that's on my list. And it's crazy because I know that, you know, and the four of us, we have, you know, this is one of our subjects a lot of the time, isn't it? Around looking after ourselves. And this idea that we're often starting the day with our battery, if you like, you know, our phones on empty, in that it's us that's starting the day often in the red zone. And that we're just never topping up enough to actually, or maybe we're just topping up to get that bit of work done, but then we're exhausted again. And this idea of, you know, again, this is completely flipping it, isn't it? It's like, well, what if I focused on my nourishment before anything else, so that I could go into my work fully charged? And that there's a coach called Imogen Roy that we've been kind of doing, just looking at some of the work she does, and she talks about this. You know, what are you doing to nourish yourself today? And that's such an important way to I think, to look at things. Because if you think about it, and as Natalie said, we're all coaches, and B and I do a lot of work with those with eating disorders, and that can be really intense work. So is it not important that I go into that fully nourished, fully charged? Because if I'm going in when I'm already tired, what use am I to a client? So it's moving away, and I don't know, maybe this is just me, but I suspect not, of feeling guilty for taking care of myself, feeling guilty for going out for a walk first thing in the morning when I should be at my desk. And we've got to flip this. I feel we've got to flip this, because we are all exhausted, and more output is expected of us all the time. Inboxes will always be full. Demands on us from our bosses or whatever, those demands will always be there. And it's having sadly, the courage to say no.
Well, like Natalie alluded to in the introduction, it's about where the value is placed. The value is often placed on the output. But actually, I'm not convinced that that is what we as individuals necessarily value. I think that's maybe what we're told to value. But actually, when we think about what is truly important to us, I'm not sure that's aligned with what society or our boss or people external to us expect. And I think when I've been caught up in this in the past, I've totally lost sight of why I'm actually doing what I'm doing. It's like we get I certainly have gotten so caught up in needing to do just that extra bit, staying late, like in my previous job, staying late in the office so I could just get ahead for the next day, or checking emails on a Sunday night just so I can get ahead. And I don't want to be doing that. And yet I still do, because it's caught in that cycle of, oh, but I should. Oh, actually, maybe that will just make my life easier. But actually, I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced. And I think that I certainly in the past haven't stopped enough to actually reflect on, what do I actually want to get out of this? What do I actually want to experience? What do I want to learn? Not just what's going to come out the other end once I'm done with this task or this project. what do I actually want? And I think taking that pause, it's almost like I haven't even got time to do that. But I think it's so essential, because like behind so many of pretty much all of the things that we do, our habits, our routine, everything, we so rarely ask why. Like, what is your why? Why am I feeling like I have to have 10 coffees a day? Why do I feel like I have to keep all these people in my life that actually don't fill me up? Why do I, like, everything? And I feel like I'm doing much more of that now, just asking why. Why does it have to be that way? Why do I do that? Why do I tolerate that? And I think that can really start to unravel a lot of this. But I think it's so important, because, again, going back to this idea of like, where are we putting the value? I think, well, certainly for me, as I've been going through this process in various aspects of my life, things have really shifted around, like what I'm putting value on. And it's much less about what I should be doing and much more about what makes me feel good. What do I want to experience? In the grand scheme of things in life, what do I want to, when I'm 80, 90 years old, looking back, what do I want to have done? Who do I want to have hung out with? What do I want to have, achieved, done, visited? And so I think it's that reprioritization almost, and that's not the right word at all, but revaluation maybe. I don't think we do it enough, right?
It's so true. I was thinking during COVID and the lockdowns and furlough, there's been quite a few advertising campaigns about getting back to normal and asking people, what did you miss? What are you missing? And particularly after, the first lockdown. And so many people, us all included, were saying, I just really want a hug, or I want to go on a date, or I want to go to that place and have a coffee in that cafe. I just really miss trying to beat my targets. It wasn't, I just can't wait to see if this month my output will be greater than the last month. It wasn't anything to do with that. And I think it's so easy for us all to get sucked into, well, that's just what I do and that's my job. And if I don't do it, somebody else might take my job. Or if I don't do it, I fear the following things happening. The other thing that I was thinking about in preparation for tonight was, typically in my case, I will have a tiny bit of energy from somewhere, and I will tend to save that up for the last piece of work I need to do today. I'll be okay for that, and then I'll relax. So it's what everybody's saying in terms of we treat the rest as a reward for working really hard. But what tends to happen when I do that, and when I give the external thing my last ounce of energy, is then I'm pretty crap for everybody around me who genuinely and actually loves me. So then I take it out on all the people who actually really care. So that's something I've been noticing and just starting to question. And then the other thing, even today, this is how fresh this stuff is. And I've been telling my other three here on this call that this week I've actually been writing down, like, point by point, when I have made time for myself, even if it's I sat in a chair with a cup of tea without my phone and I didn't leave the chair and I drank the tea while it was hot. I mean, I know there are some people on the call who don't even do that and can't find time for that, right? So I've been logging this stuff all week, and on the days, I've had 2 days where I've really managed to do quite a lot of rest, and those 2 days by far have been 100 times more effective, productive, got more done effortlessly, less thinking, just plowed through all of my to-do lists, not even questioning the lists, but it's just been interesting to me to see the shift. But in this space today, where I've been thinking I need to get ready for this call, and can I get organized ahead of my 8 p.m. here, I realized that I'd got through all of my emails today, but I didn't message the one friend I wanted to since this morning. So I'm like, the one person outside of the people on this call, you're most of my friends. Outside of this, it's like I didn't do that. So what's happening there? So even in this conscious place where I'm noting down, how am I going to fuel myself today? I'm noting down what care I've taken. And I've been doing this for about 10 days now. And there's been days where I've not managed to write anything down. So even in this conscious place, even today, I prioritize things that were to do with work and output and income, which I know there's a place for that, but over the thing that I really wanted to do, which was message a friend I didn't manage to get through. And I'm just finding the whole subject fascinating, which is why I'm really glad we brought it.
Rach, that's so interesting, isn't it? Because if you think about it, messaging your friend would have energized you so much.
Yeah.
All right. To enable you to do all the other stuff, whereas probably it was lingering in your mind. Oh, I still haven't done it. Oh, I still haven't done it. I still haven't done it. And it's crazy, isn't it, that we've just got it back to front.
Yeah.
Got it back to front.
Yeah. So much so, like I've emailed 2 strangers today. 2 people I don't even know. I've gone, yes, I must be in touch with these people. And yes, I love my business and that's how my work works. But how is that possible when my friend didn't hear from me? I'm like, it needs to be both or friend first. Like, I just need to flip this. I think you're right. It needs to flip.
I just wonder whether it needs to be as radical as friend first. Just full stop. And whatever friend first means to all of us. Because then we are in a completely different state of mind.
But isn't it crazy that we see the work stuff as productive and yet everything else not? Like, you've literally just said, messaging my friend would have energized me. Like, what do we even think productive means? It's so, I feel like it's just, we've so lost sight of what the hell we're trying to do. Or what is life about? Like, I don't know whether it's maybe just because I've been seeing it differently more recently, but is being, and I guess it goes back to this whole thing about outputs, but are we not using our time productively? I'm never going to be able to use that word again now. If we are fueling ourselves and being energized by whatever we're doing, work or not, like, is it more about us actually paying more attention to what's warm and what's cold? I don't know, are we is that a better signal of where we should be putting our efforts? And that actually maybe us doing the warm things kind of 90% of the time. There are going to be some cold things like admin. But is that not being productive?
That's so interesting.
There's something in me, and it's not necessarily in response to that bee, but what's emerging for me is this, I sense that when I've done something and I've ticked those productive boxes, it feels more successful than, say, the message to the friend or the rest I take. There's something, and I don't believe it's true, by the way, but I think there's something in terms of the culture I've breathed in and what I've been brought up to believe is true, is that that's linked to me being a good person and successful and of worth. And I think that's why we drive ourselves so much to keep up.
There's something about external validation. Like, we receive validation when we produce these outputs, whereas we don't when we're doing the things that are more about fueling ourselves, or things that are more aligned to us that don't lead to an output. It's like even getting a gold star at school, that we're taught from such an early age that producing this thing well gets you a gold star, gets you a brownie point, gets you a pat on the back, gets a kind of, you're well done in front of the whole team at work.
It's our good girl training, isn't it?
Yeah, big time.
But it's good boy it's if you work hard enough,
Yeah,
you will achieve. And actually what we haven't talked about yet is just rest. So we're talking about choosing the warm things versus the cold things. So what will I spend my time doing? It is I actually prioritizing the friend versus prioritizing the worky stuff. But actually I want a third of my time, if not more, to be sitting still in my home that I'm paying a lot for, or sitting still, just sitting still. And actually what's brilliant, I'm thinking about just having conversations in life, and when you bump into people on a Monday morning, and it's often the schoolroom, but not always, could be in the office, wherever, or even just on the street. What did you do this weekend? Nothing. I just sat with my kids. We just did nothing. We got dressed on Sunday. We ate some vegetables. I cleaned them. And that's some weekends what I want to do. And that's sometimes I talk a lot to my children about how being bored is really important, how giving your head just some time off is really important. And for me too, I just want to sit. I just want to sit. So we're not even talking about actual rest, which is also part of what we're able to do. Right?
Can you imagine in a work environment, if instead of being praised for, bringing in the that big piece of work, that you were praised for nurturing the relationships, for resting well? It's just mad, isn't it, to even think about it? But it's that whole thing as well about the validation, that we wouldn't dream of telling people, well, actually, I just sat down and, rested, because
It's lazy.
it's lazy.
Yeah.
Oh, is it though?
That, but that
Well, obviously,
that
no,
was
definitely not.
drummed into me.
Yeah. And it's like having to justify sitting still, or justifying rest. And it's just all wrong. And it's like, it's the glorification of busyness. Like when you ask people, how are you? Their response is busy.
Yeah.
Like that's not an answer to the question, but it is like the number of times that has been the response to that question is absurd. And I've said it too. Why is it that we are, like but also the society as a whole, constantly trying to keep people kind of trapped in this cycle of busyness? And do we actually want it, even though other people around us, society, employers, are rewarding us for that? Again, it goes back to like, what do we actually want? And I'm not convinced that being busy and being flat out is what I want. But I feel like there's so much judgment around space and time and downtime, because again, it's like busyness equals success. Oh, you must be doing really well if you're flat out. If you're knackered, you must be doing really well. Like what? But there is so much, not truth in that, but as in that is what I have heard. But why has it got to this point, and how can we start to shift that? I think certainly part of it is just seeing it, seeing that we're all tangled up in this to some extent, And it's almost like I feel like I have to call out my own behavior when I am kind of inadvertently complicit with that, because it's kind of a busyness system that just keeps us going, and then sells us software or tools or products to make us more efficient at doing more, just so we can output more and more and more. So we reach for those tools because it feels like they're well, we're told that it'll make our lives easier. But I feel like adding on is not the answer. It's subtracting. It's creating that space. And I feel like so many of us, our knee-jerk reaction is, I just don't have time for that. And I have said that in the past. But I wonder, like, what are we filling our time with that actually isn't aligned with what we actually want and what we actually really need? Because I feel like, certainly for me anyway, there's so much stuff that I already have been able to free up, but there's still got to be an absolute ton more stuff.
How cool is this, B, that you know this at 28? Natalie, I barged in there, sorry.
No, it's okay. I think, you know, where's the starting point to wake up? And I think a lot of us are feeling so kind of neck deep in an ever increasing to-do list that actually to have the headspace to even look at it, because when you're stirred up like that, everything looks urgent, and it looks like you can't take any time. You can't even take 5 minutes for coffee because there's so much to do. And it's exactly in those moments when we're feeling everything is urgent, it's exactly when we need to take some time, because what B's describing, that that subtraction process kind of happens already just by stepping away a little bit, as we can start to see a little bit more clearly what's important. And like what Rachel said, you know, there's a bit about actually experimenting and breaking a pattern. And by seeing, and you know, what you're describing, Rachel, is as you invest some time, energy and attention into what's occurring to you to nourish and rest you, that actually there's an exact correlation with you being able to come back to whatever you need to do, and from that place contribute and do what's required in a more effortless, and I would hazard a guess, more capable way. And that's going on for all of us. It's a leap of faith to put ourselves first, to take that nourishment in whatever way it is. But if we take that leap of faith, I think we start to see the evidence that it's not only totally logical, but the kindest thing we could do to ourselves. And believe it or not, will lead to much better results. And coming to what B was saying about what feels, you know, more aligned and how we want to spend our time, well, from that place, I think we'll just be guided by some clearer thinking and some more wisdom into, you know, what feels right to do.
Oh, and I think there's something in the word nourishment, which when we first started talking about this a few weeks ago, I didn't enjoy the word as much as I do now. It kind of felt greedy, like I deserve to be nourished. You know, I prefer the word fuel. Like, how will I fuel myself today? How will I charge my battery? I just think, in case anybody's tripping over some of the words here. And what the other thing that came to mind is, you know, I know so many people who on the call, in the session, wherever will say, I'm just so tired. And if it's, you know, amongst friends, the next line is typically, oh, how can I help? So that basically says, how can I maintain the busyness with you? How can I do whatever we can? Like, nobody's questioning the level of busy. People are just going, how can I help so that you feel less tired? The correct response I'm actually seeing now should be, when can you rest? When will you rest? When will you sleep? You're tired, you need to sleep. When can you sleep? I've just read here, the chat is open for anybody who wants to, but Janet's the end of this comment is, you know, the restorative power of naps. And I'm like, if somebody tells you they're tired, we can help and point it out with each of us on the call, you know, when will you sleep? Because that's the next logical action, right? Amazing if you're not doing this.
I'm absolutely delighted to read this from Janet. One of my biggest learnings during the pandemic has been that I used to measure the quality of life in terms of doing things. This meant that my life was filled either with work or with going out and doing things. It was exhausting. Lockdown really helped me to understand that being is far more important than doing. It has completely changed my approach to how I manage my time and what I choose to spend my time doing. Janet, that brings tears of joy to my eyes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And how different do you feel now?
Mm.
And I'm all for naps.
Yeah. And we shared the Glennon Doyle quote on this one before, the adulthood is saying, but after this week, things will slow down a bit, over and over until you die.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's the story, certainly of my life. Like, oh, but after this week, we'll do it after this week, because that's when things will slow down. And, you know, Glennon Doyle, just that's what we say, and then we die. And it was a really lovely wake-up call and reminder. And actually, what do we want to be spending our time doing? And just this, my live example today of not even messaging a friend is just, I'm kind of learning live right now. Not okay.
And it's also okay to forget.
Yeah.
Like we talk about this stuff, but we forget it daily. And we constantly have to remind ourselves and each other with whatever we're talking about. Every topic that we've talked about over the last 18 months, we always forget. So this isn't about judging ourselves for maybe not seeing some of this stuff, or for being knackered, or for working flat out, or for not prioritizing ourselves. Like, no self-judgment needed ever. Like we all do it. We all fall back into that. And I think, as I said a minute ago, it's just starting to notice just all of this stuff, really, and starting to question it.
Well, sorry, Bea, you finished?
Go.
When was it that I started taking Wednesdays as a day off? I can't remember. But it took me quite a while to realize that actually I loved, and I'm sure I've shared this on another call, but I love to do needlework, needlecraft, sewing, knitting, all sorts of stuff. But I was shoehorning it, the stuff that nourishes me, I was shoehorning into other areas of my life. And I realized that I had a choice here, that I was tired, I was exhausted, that as Bea just said, to take a leap of faith, that actually by taking a day off, so I work Monday, Tuesday, and then Thursday, Friday, that I show up and am a better coach, because I have fed myself. I have nourished myself with the stuff that I love to do, rather than being a worn out kind of Wonder Woman wannabe, trying to do everything. That actually now I get to yeah, do that for myself. And interestingly, I haven't got any sewing on the go at the moment, but the weather's been absolutely beautiful. And I always think that a warm and sunny September is such a treat, that I have been out walking, and I had a wonderful walk today, and I didn't feel guilt in any way that I should have been doing anything else. This is what I was choosing to do with my time. And when our minds, as Natalie's been saying as well, when our minds are freer, there's more space. And in that space, that space allows for creativity, for ideas, for things to bubble up. And that then means that I can have a new idea for a piece of work, for example. And that wouldn't have come up if I was, it's like the hamster on the wheel going round and round and round and round and round. Haven't got time, haven't got time, haven't got time. No, I can't go for a walk, haven't got time. But with that leap of faith, there is space. And in that space, that's where the magic happens.
And that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to carve out hours of our day to kind of be horizontal. Like this whole thing that Natalie was you were just talking about the having this quieter mind, that is still accessible within the reality of life and all the stuff that we have to do around work, around family, around everything, that it might take a 5-second pause to kind of break the circuit almost, and then to find that place again. But I think, and I think that was certainly a misconception that I had, that this requires me to not have a full-time job, basically. And I think that can be quite refreshing and reassuring, I think, that actually we can still access that quieter mind even amongst the busyness. We've had a comment in the chat. Others on the call, feel free to post any questions, comments. Polly, I'm finding the new start of term with 3 kids going back and things being back to normal with all the clubs going on so overwhelming. I realise as much as I hated homeschooling and was not made to be a school teacher, I equally really miss a slower pace of life and less rushing around. Yeah. Only feel not enough hours in the day. Yep. Discovered open water swimming. Amazing. Yeah, time to yourself. Yeah, amazing.
And I also hear, Polly, that you're noticing you've taken that time for yourself, but you're also now trying to catch up from the time. And something I guess I've been looking at for myself and from our conversations is, are there any things that we can let go of or drop that we currently think is our responsibility, but maybe isn't? Or like, I've had to really think about my relationship with saying yes. Because I think in the wanting to please, we sometimes maybe take on some stuff that we don't need to. You've got lots to say on this subject, Rachel. I don't know whether you want to.
Well, we did it a bit before we got on the call, and then we were like, no, you need to share this on the actual call. That often something that flies out of my mouth is for every no, for every yes, there needs to be a no. So, and if you sit with that one for a while, certainly I know most people in my life are kind of a default yes kind of person. And of course I want to go. And of course that sounds great for my kids, my friend, my whatever, or for myself. Yes. And one thing I realized, I think I said it to somebody yesterday, was just this idea of let's just not commit live. Let's take that pause and find some really good language that might mean that I build just 10 seconds so that I can actually think through, A, is there something I want to do? And B, can I just go and find all versions of my diary to see if it's something I can actually do? And is there rest built in? And there was something else, I was having another conversation very recently saying that what I spend time doing on a Sunday now, as well as mapping out the week of just getting my head around what's about to happen, is I look at the week now and go, what can I get out of? What can I say no to? And what can I put down and stop? What space can I create, rather than where can I build in breaks so that I don't, run out of power or steam? What can I actually get out of and say no to? And it's a really different place. I've never operated from this place before, but it's really refreshing. But every time I say yes to something, in my head now I hear and find something to move, find something to get out of, basically. Because to Polly's point, there aren't enough hours in the day unless we're being really, really picky about what we're doing. And if our default is a yes, I don't know if we can consciously be picky in a way that really fuels us and serves us. And I know a lot of people on this call and a lot of people listening, we're good people. Like, we need to be fueled and not have schedules that are so full there's no time to take a breath.
And just when you're feeling overwhelmed, just be really kind to yourself and try and do one thing at a time. And I get it too, like the back to school, the clubs, what's got to be in what bag, where at what time. And I secretly enjoyed the quieter pace too. But yeah, one thing at a time.
The other thing I'm playing with in my head, and it's again something we discussed earlier in the week, was just this idea that not just finding a no, but using no in our general vocabulary as a very commonly used word, and actually just exercising the right to just say no. It just felt a bit bonkers thinking about it before the call. Like, we've got this thing, do you want to come? Or we've got this offer, do you want to hear it? No, but thank you. No. And I'm so uncomfortable saying it, but I think it's worth exploring. What can I genuinely say no to and not fill up the space around it with, the caveat and but I would if I could, or I just can't find, the excuse. I don't need the excuse. I can also just say no. And Rebecca very kindly pointed out that no is a sentence in itself. So I don't need to follow it with the explanation to make you feel more comfortable in the presence of my no. I can just say no.
And what I love, Rach, is that because your default has been yes, is that you've now started using our WhatsApp group for, I'm about to say yes, but really I want to say no. I just need to write it here. So I've got you guys to support me in this. Yeah. And that's really helpful, isn't it? Which is building in a pause.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether the next stage, Rach, is instead of looking at your diary on a Sunday to say, what can I get out of, is actually the next stage is not putting it in the first place.
Yeah. Yes, please. Work in progress, but yes, please.
But yeah, all of us, right?
Yeah. This was the first week of that, and I think I said to you, something fell out of my diary. I'm not going to fill it.
Yeah.
And I have filled a chunk, but nowhere near what I would have done had we not been having this conversation.
I love what B you said before we came on the call about, you know, but if you've got somebody else filling in your diary and you've got meeting after meeting after meeting and there's no break, is actually, you know, going to your upline, going to your manager to say, this is too much.
Yeah. And it can be a really tough conversation, because I think there's a whole load of judgment attached to that. But I've had to have those conversations in the past. Just saying, I haven't got capacity. And again, going back to the saying no before actually taking on that work, and knowing that that does not say anything about you or your capabilities.
Yeah.
Because I think I certainly used to have a lot of thinking around that, oh, they won't think that I can handle it, or that I'm not capable, or that, I don't know, I'm I don't know, just not capable, not good at my job, not good enough, not as good as that person. Oh, but look at that person, they're staying until this time to get it done, not putting enough effort, not pulling my weight. Nobody ever said that to me. This was all the internal chatter about why I can't say no. And it's mad, really. And yeah, like having those conversations are so important, because ultimately it's protecting ourselves. And like getting to the point of burnout is common, but it's not pleasant. I don't think anyone particularly enjoys that. And so it's like looking at the preventative stuff, all of this stuff that we've been talking about this evening, rather than looking at, okay, I'm at the point of burnout, but I've still got all this stuff to do. Give me a tool to to enable me to still get that done. Because that is not the answer. So what can we build in day to day now to enable ourselves to do what we need to do, but from a place that is rested, that is content with what we're actually doing, what we're actually spending our energy on. I feel like we don't value that enough, that we give and we give and we give of our time and our energy without necessarily thinking about, is this actually aligned, like what I said earlier, is this actually aligned with what I want, with what brings me joy, with what makes me happy, with what energizes me. So I think, yeah, it's a work in progress for us, absolutely.
And we have to start in the little things, you know.
Yeah.
I love that, Polly, you started swimming. I think that's such a great thing, whatever it is, but it's your commitment. It's our commitment to ourselves to choose ourselves, so that we're ready then to go back and deal with all the after school clubs or whatever going on. Janet, I love this as well, blocking out time in your calendar, in your work calendar, to prevent other people from putting meetings in. I mean, why is that even a thing, that people can put things in your diary without even asking, you know? And then, yeah, absolutely gives you the space to decide if you need to attend the meeting. Yeah. I mean, it's again, and, you know, thankfully I don't have this, but how many, you know, when people have had a week or 2 weeks off holiday and then go back to a million emails, and most of them are just because they're reply all.
They're the worst.
So, you know, probably 3/4 at least you don't even need to look at.
I had somebody say to me, you know, it has to be a 2-week holiday, because for the first week I usually just spend, that's recovery.
Yes.
So I need it. I need the 2 weeks, because then the second week I get to wake up and breathe. And I'm just, that's not okay. It's not. Yeah. I also like when you get to the meeting questioning the length of the time it is for, and whether or not your presence is required for the entire time. Because I want to question the length of all meetings, actually, and how long they take. I spoke over something, then I reckon it was Natalie, sorry.
I know you're going to.
I've lost the thing I was going to say. However, I'm sure that will come back to me. But on the topic of the saying no, saying yes, pausing, I was speaking to a good friend yesterday about this very topic, and she talks about no, yes, depends. And she finds invariably it's the depends. So yes, she'll build in a pause if she needs a pause, but if I say yes, you know, there's probably going to be something. It depends on me losing something off the list, or it depends on someone else being able to take X on. So I just like this idea, because I think sometimes it feels very binary, doesn't it? Yes or no. Actually, we've got all sorts of iterations in the middle as well. And I think actually, if we put this depends into the mix as well. So if you're going to say yes, well, what is it that is an important variable for you that you could then move off your kind of to-do list?
Yeah, well done. Yeah.
And I just really want to say, like, the science backs up that when we are rested and more clear-headed, less overwhelmed, coming from a place of more ease, we will perform better. So I know that it really feels like we can keep going, but our productivity slips in that climate. It just doesn't get better. We might have a more sense of busyness. We're not getting better outcomes, and we're not feeling better in the process. This isn't just me saying this. This is science backs it up. And actually, if you want to look at high performance athletes and sports people, you know, they perform best when they've got less on their mind, not when they're overwhelmed to the hill. Like, intuitively, I think we know that we perform better, we produce better, whatever productivity means. We contribute more. We have more beautiful connections and relationships and more impact from a rested place.
I'm off to bed then.
Well, I mean, we're going to top of the hour now, so I was going to do a wrap up, but I kind of feel like Natalie's just done it.
Yep.
Sorry, B. I've lost track of time.
No, that was perfect. I mean, yeah, what she said.
Yeah.
I feel like, as you can tell, as always with these talks, we are very much learning live, and I've been kind of scribbling things down that the others have been saying to take note of. But I think, yeah, for me, it's just unloading. It's not forcing and adding on and just powering through. That it's absolutely essential that we offload, that we rest, that we subtract, because that it doesn't have any downsides, really, if you think about it. But it's like we've been saying, this is a total flip, which is what we like to do with these talks. And so it feels weird, it feels uncomfortable, it feels unusual. But actually, yeah, if there's no downside, then why not? So I hope everyone's found it helpful this evening. Yeah, as I say, I've learned a lot from the other three. And we haven't decided yet what next month's talk will be on. So if there are any requests, let us know. And yeah, we'll be in touch soon. Thank you so much, everyone who has joined us this evening.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.